In the United States, the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, was publicly accused of allegedly disrupting aid to Ukraine with his actions. And he is driving the White House and President Trump himself to despair. The publication Politico unexpectedly released a huge article claiming that not only are people in Washington dissatisfied with the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, but that he has also greatly annoyed both the White House and the United States Congress. Amid the political battles surrounding Ukraine that have engulfed Washington, there is a rare display of bipartisan agreement. Everyone is tired of Andriy Yermak, the head of the office of President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. And now, according to 10 sources familiar with his contacts in the United States, as reported by Politico, Yermak has become an especially irritating interlocutor for the Donald Trump administration. My name is Alexei Pechi. It's June 19th. Let's look into this topic together because it's quite extensive. The material today is provided by Politico. It refers to American, European and Ukrainian officials and says that Yermak has already supposedly caused trouble and people in America don't really want to talk to him. Let's figure out what's true and what's not. Before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment you want, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as it comes in. So, as Politico writes today, since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, Yermak has regularly traveled to Washington, acting as an intermediary on behalf of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. However, many in Washington consider him not well-versed enough in American politics and abrupt in his manner of communication, and excessively demanding in his interactions with American officials. Overall, he proved unable to navigate the nuances of the Washington political machine, especially on Capitol Hill. Some interlocutors also expressed concerns that Andriy Yermak does not always accurately convey the United States position to the leadership in Kyiv, that is, to President Zelensky. Let me note right away that this material may not fully reflect the situation, but I decided to share it with you for the sake of completeness, or if you prefer to offer a different perspective on the situation. For this publication, Politico spoke with 14 individuals, including congressional aides, former officials from the United States and Ukraine, as well as others familiar with Yermak's contacts in Washington. Most of them agreed to speak only on condition of anonymity, given the sensitive nature of diplomatic issues. One of the interviewees familiar with Yermak's contacts with the Trump administration described him as a bipartisan irritant. The behavior of Andriy Yermak, as many fear, increasingly threatens the already tense relations between Ukraine and the Trump administration at a critical moment when Kyiv desperately needs the support of the United States to defend itself against ongoing attacks from Russia. President Donald Trump has generally shown leniency toward Russian President Vladimir Putin and is trying to push Ukraine toward peace talks with Moscow. In a statement delivered through a spokesperson, Yermak emphasized that he is doing everything possible to protect Ukraine's sovereignty and security. And then, Politico quotes Andriy Yermak, "If that means someone will consider me difficult, so be it. I'm ready to wait for many more hours outside any doors if it helps my country and my president's mission. I don't strive to perfectly understand how American politics works. I come to speak about the country I know best, Ukraine." This week, as you know, Zelensky couldn't meet with Trump at the summit. The United States president left the summit early, citing the escalation in the Middle East. It is still unknown whether Zelensky will have another opportunity to meet with Trump at the NATO summit next time. It is expected that the issue of Ukraine will not be at the center of attention at this meeting of the leaders of the Defense Alliance as it was in previous years. And in order not to provoke a conflict with Trump, officials from Joe Biden's administration, as the publication writes, were also irritated by Yermak, but they mostly managed to set this irritation aside. Given the urgency of the war and Washington's key role in strengthening Kyiv's defense capabilities ahead of the Russian offensive, this was reported by a former senior official from the Biden administration, as well as 3 other people familiar with United States-Ukraine relations during that period. During an unexpected visit to Washington in early June of this year, Yermak found it difficult to secure meetings with senior officials from the Trump administration. 5 people familiar with the details of the visit, some of whom were directly involved in the planning process, told this to Politico. Zelensky's aide, that is Yermak, arrived without a clearly defined agenda, and according to one of the informed sources, those whom he did meet described it as, quote, "We don't understand why he came." Tap Totei. The planned meeting between Yermak and United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio was cancelled at the last moment. However, according to one of the sources, Yermak still managed to accidentally meet with Marco Rubio, who also serves as the National Security Advisor at the White House. The Ukrainian official posted a photo of this meeting on the social network X, noting that they discussed the situation at the front and Ukraine's urgent need for air defense systems. According to the first source, the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, made Yermak wait at first and then cancelled the meeting altogether. The office of Vice President J.D. Vance did not respond to the meeting request at all. The White House, the State Department, and the office of Vice President J.D. Vance declined to provide a comment for this Politico article. Meanwhile, Andriy Yermak's representative Alexei Tkachuk denies this interpretation of the visit to Politico. According to him, Yermak did meet with Marco Rubio in his office at the White House. And the meeting with Wiles did take place, but it was shorter than planned. However, a White House spokesperson stated that Wiles did not meet with Yermak at all during his June visit. Tkachuk, the same representative of Yermak, explained that the main purpose of the trip, during which Yermak was accompanied by a delegation of high-ranking Ukrainian officials, was to hold a closed high-level briefing for members of the United States Senate on the current situation at the front and the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, as well as to discuss the introduction of new sanctions against Russia. People familiar with Kyiv's relationship with its key ally described Yermak's contacts with both American administrations as tense and complicated. They note that Yermak still hasn't learned how to navigate the corridors of power in Washington, even though it's been 6 years since he became Zelensky's closest advisor. For example, he believed that the agreement on critical minerals was so important to Trump that, thanks to it, Ukraine would receive security guarantees, said a second source familiar with the course of the visit. He was referring to the Joint Investment Fund, which is supposed to give the United States access to Ukrainian mineral deposits. The source calls this idea absurd. During private conversations with allies, Yermak, as Politico writes, accused certain members of the Trump administration of being agents of Russian influence. Trump's Middle East representative, Steve Witkoff, met with Putin 4 times while Trump sought to involve Moscow in negotiations. Here, I completely agree with Yermak. Steve Witkoff is really, well, if not an agent of Russian influence, then definitely a pro-Russian figure. But still, Yermak's visit in early June was not completely in vain. He managed to meet with congressmen on Capitol Hill, as well as with Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg. In addition, he held a meeting with Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau. According to a person familiar with Yermak's contacts with the Trump administration, he was told that Yermak was unusually accommodating and constructive during this visit. However, according to the first source familiar with the details of the trip, Yermak himself was extremely disappointed with its results. From Ukraine's point of view, this visit was a disaster, said another source familiar with the course of the trip, and called Yermak an existential problem for Ukraine. The future of American aid to Ukraine was put at risk after the re-election of Trump, who clearly favors those world leaders who are able to charm him with flattery and give him lavish receptions. The Trump administration has so far failed to achieve a breakthrough in seeking an end to the war in Ukraine, which has been going on for 3 years. And here I'll add my own comment. Today, Zelensky suddenly said that it would be good to end this war before the end of Donald Trump's presidential term. And it ends in the year 2029. But let's get back to the Politico article. After a heated argument with Zelensky in the Oval Office, in March, Trump temporarily halted military aid and intelligence sharing with Kyiv, trying to increase pressure specifically on Ukraine, not on Russia, to force it to come to the negotiating table. Zelensky also irritated the Biden administration at one time with his increasing demands for weapons. At least once, according to reports, Joe Biden lost his temper and advised Zelensky, quote, to show a little more gratitude. A former senior Biden administration official described relations with Zelensky's closest advisor as difficult and added that Yermak did not understand the subtleties of diplomacy. Yermak is known to strictly control access to the Ukrainian president. Several people familiar with their interactions have stated this. During the Biden administration, officials were concerned that Yermak might distort Zelensky's message to them and vice versa. However, the more favorable Biden White House was willing to make extra efforts to work with Yermak and even help him formulate exactly what should be requested from Washington and what arguments should be made. This was revealed by a former minister of the Ukrainian government. In general, this is quite a high-profile piece that Politico is publishing today. Write in the comments your opinion about Yermak, your opinion about this piece. You may have learned something new, agreed with some points, or feel ready to debate others. But be sure to write all of this in the comments under this episode. Plus, you can also write about it in my Telegram channel, Peche News. Let me remind you that the link to it is in the description of this video. Go check it out and be sure to subscribe. Also, subscribe to the Alexei Peche channel. Don't forget to like the video and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the quick response code on your screens. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. Subtitles created by